How much do I owe? Thank you, Lord. Been so kind to me, Father. You know what he did, church? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Church, you know what he did? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Let me tell you what he did for me, church. They led him up Calvary Hill. They whipped him all day long. Pierced my Jesus in his side, on his head and died. Lordy, 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 Lord. You've been so kind to me, Father. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Oh, yeah. Been so kind. Let me say it one more time. How much do I owe? Thank you, Jesus. Been so kind to me, Father. Yes, you have. You know what he did, church? Got one more thing. Listen here. Two thieves were hanging beside him. One of them said, "Lord, remember me. Whatever you will tell, oh, remember me in paradise." Oh, thank you, Jesus. You know what he did, church? We won't let him take his gift. Thank you, Jesus. Fella, you know what he did?
First book of Romans. Paul is the author. And we're going to start with Romans, the 18th verse to the 25th verse. Romans, the first book of Romans, and the 18th verse. Yes, number 1. Verse. All right. That's what I'm talking about. God's grace being comforted, that nothing will be able to separate us. Romans, the first chapter, beginning with the 18th verse, God's wrath against mankind. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godliness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God had made it plain to them, For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became fertile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for image made to look like mortal man, and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore God gave them over in the sinful desires of their heart to sexual impurity, for degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lust. Even their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed indecent acts with one man and received themselves the due penalty for their perversion. Furthermore, since they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, he gave them over to deprived minds to do what ought not to be done. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be unto God. I gave y'all some extra, but God's word is good. God is good.
Did they not sing? I think they keep getting better and better. They're like wine. Wine, I heard some of them, I don't know if that's because you have a taste for it or you understand, but you know, wine as it ages is supposed to be better. And certainly they are aging, they are seniors, they're not old. Some of them may claim old, I don't claim them being old. But they're old. But I declare, I think that they will be better.
Amen.
As they continue on. Amen? Amen. Now we are looking at the book of Romans, first chapter. Some would call the book of Romans the Magna Carta, the Bible, the New Testament, written by Paul. And when you get an opportunity, read the entire chapter. First chapter of Romans. God has to deal with the sin of humanity. Here he's dealing with the sin of Israel. I want to focus on a particular point today, though. I want to read verses 18 through 20. And 20 being the focal verse. But for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because that which is known of God is revealed in them, for God revealed it to them. For the invisible things of him, since the creation of the world, are clearly seen, being perceived through the things that are made, even as everlasting power and divinity, that they may be without excuse. That's from the World English Bible translation. So I want to preach from the subject today, see his glory. See his glory. I think it's critically important that we take time to see his glory. And his glory is all around us. Let us pray. Merciful Father, as we gather here today for worship, God, I pray that you open our eyes so that we may see. That, Lord, that nature is your creation. That, God, it speaks of your power. And that, God, we should tremble when we consider those things that cannot be seen with the eyes. Atoms and protons and neutrons and black holes, to the largest things that can be seen and marveled at. Planets and universes, to the trees and the stars and the plants and birds and our human bodies. Oh, what marvelous creation. Speak now for your word so that we sin not, but that we marvel instead. In Jesus' mighty and everlasting name we pray. Amen. Amen. Being sick, bad enough. Anybody in here has not been sick? I don't see any hands going up. Most of us have had a cold, flu, or something, but not a more serious disease. But imagine if in addition to being sick, medical professionals had no clear diagnosis for what's wrong with you. Imagine if no one could figure out what the problem is. Sort of what I'm going through. I'm being sent to one specialist to another, all evolving around a cough. For I can understand what it feels like when when there's no clear diagnosis. Imagine, if one doctor, let me say this. Imagine if you had it for a long period of time. Remember the woman with the issue of blood? 12 long years. Went from doctor to doctor to doctor. And no one could figure out how to stop her flow of blood until she met Jesus. And somebody ought to say, be thankful for Jesus. But one doctor wrote this about these kinds of mystery illnesses. Patients with mystery illnesses and symptoms tend to get lots of tests and shuffle to lots of specialists. More people than you might think are in this limbo of an illness without a diagnosis. I know there's some people who are disciples of this church who understand what this means. Some of them are not here today, but they've been there. This is frustrating for everybody. Patients sometimes get irritated with the doctors, and the doctors sometimes get irritated with the patients, and sometimes they think that what's wrong with the patients is not physical but psychosomatic. In other words, it's in their heads. But the doctor goes on to write, we all want to uncover the mystery diagnosis, but we have to acknowledge an unfortunate possibility. We sometimes will not find a diagnosis. If you've ever watched any of the mystery health programs on TV, sometimes you'll see people who are there, real cases, and they don't find out what's wrong until maybe years later, what was wrong with someone that's already died. There are diseases that are very common, and then there are ones that are very uncommon. And now, if you can imagine, they just keep cropping up, seemingly coming from nowhere, but they come from somewhere. And now we have this coronavirus and the disease COVID-19. And in most cases, regardless of how good or bad the news, just having a clear diagnosis is a blessing in itself. And I think for us, having a clear treatment plan and hopefully a cure would be truly a blessing. But the Bible confirms what I think all of us already know. According to Paul in the book of Romans, we are sick. Hello, somebody. We're a bunch of sick folk around here. I'm talking about humanity. We're sick. Our world is sick. And we individually are sick. And our sickness is fatal. Physically, mentally, and spiritually. Now, if you ask most people the question, what's wrong with the world? If I was to ask you, I get a whole lot of different answers. Everybody seems to have a different diagnosis for the condition. Some people will say, well, what's wrong with the world is politics. If you get a good leader in some of these countries, then things will be better. Some will say it's greed. Some will say it's inequality. The rich keep getting richer and the poor keeps getting poorer. There are a whole lot of people will say that that's the issue. Some would say that this or that religion is to blame. And others will say that secular humanism is the problem. Some will say corruption or pollution or prejudice or junk food or the media or materialism or intolerance, and the list goes on and on and on and on about what we think the problem is with the world. But how would you diagnose the world? Let me ask you this, how would you diagnose yourself? Right now, how would you diagnose yourself? You got it all together? You walking around and you say, I'm good. I got sin under control. But did you sin last night? Did you sin this morning, or did you sin by making that statement, I've got sin under control? But if you accept that you are sick, in some way spiritually sick, then what's behind the sickness? Is it bad luck? Y'all know as a Christian, I don't believe in luck. Luck has nothing to do with what happens to me. My steps are ordered by the Lord. My blessings come from God. And if something bad happens to me, it's either some trial that God has allowed to happen or one that the Lord said needs to happen. Y'all hear me? Is it unjust circumstances? Is it a bad childhood? Is it something medical? Is it something psychological? People spend millions every year in medication and therapy trying to figure these things out. What's behind my sickness? Oh, I ought to have a witness up in here. What's behind the reason I behave the way that I do? I do the things I don't want to do, and the things I want to do, I don't do them. That's what the Apostle Paul says, and some of us are caught up in the same, but we know we don't want to act this way. We know we don't want to be sneaking and peeping, but sometimes something just gets a hold of us, and we lose all rational sense. Next thing you know, the feet are going in another direction, and I'm going to leave that alone. But this morning, part of the best news ever is that we do not have to be in that limbo of having an illness without a diagnosis. God, the great physician, has given us a clear diagnosis of our condition. And we find it in Romans chapter 1. The Bible sums our sickness using one word: sin. Sin is our sickness. Ray Stedman reminds us that this book of Romans lit the fire in Martin Luther's heart that began the Protestant Reformation and changed the history of the Western world. This book lit the fire in John Wesley's heart, resulting in the Great Awakening in England that saved England from the fate of France and the French Revolution. This book lit the fire in Karl Barth's heart in our own day and caused him to write a study on Romans, which called the theological world back from cold and barren deadness to a much more vital and powerful Christian message. This book has become one of the most powerful and revolutionary books of all time. The communists think that the writings of Karl Marx are revolutionary, but the writings of Karl Marx look like a Boy Scout manual when compared to the revolutionary power of the book of Romans. It's just because this book has become so familiar to us that we have lost some of the sense of its revolutionary power. But I hope that when we approach it now, that we will have a sense of freshness and newness. And perhaps we will see and sense once again the tremendous vitality, the vividness and power of this book of Romans. Revolutionary in the times of Paul's day. This is a letter written by the Apostle Paul to the Christian community in Rome. And as best we can determine, he wrote it while he was in the city of Corinth, which was the cultural center of the Roman world. Paul had never been to Rome when he wrote this letter. Yet he knew many of the people there, and perhaps he had led some of them to the Lord. John Piper says verse 1 may look like it is about the author of the letter, but behind every phrase is someone far greater. God bought Paul by the death of his son, and God called Paul to be an apostle. God set him apart before he was born. God had his hand on each one of us before we were born. The word says he knew you before you were even in your mother's womb. And I know that's hard for us to comprehend. But your soul, your spirit that gives you life, God had already formed it. He said even before your body was formed in your mama's womb, the spirit that gave you life, God said, I already knew it and had already formed it. And we hear this in the gospel of God. Even in the first verse of Romans, we can hear Romans 11:36. From him and through him and to him are all things, and to him be the glory forever. Leon Morris is exactly right when he says God is the most important word in this epistle. You can get a whole lot out of this book of Romans. Romans 1 talks about sin, but the most important thing I hope everyone gets out of this book is God. God is behind everything that Paul says in this book. Romans is a book about God. No topic is treated with anything like the frequency of God. Everything Paul touches in this letter, he relates to God. When you get a moment, you need to pick it up and read it, because when you read it, you're understanding what Paul and God had going on in their relationship, and how God touched Paul to write this letter to a place he had never been before. In order for sin to work, there has to be a suppression of the truth. And the reason people sin is not because they don't know better. We know better. You know that if you're stealing, you stealing. You know if you're cheating on your taxes, you're cheating. You know that. You know if you go, even when we were little kids, you know if you went over to somebody's garden or the watermelon patch or the grapevine, and it wasn't yours, it didn't belong to your parents, your grandparents, your uncles or your aunties, and you over there just picking and eating, you knew you were stealing. Somebody would say, well, I was just taking, I was a little kid. Nevertheless, you knew what you were doing. Many of us know that a simple thing, a simple matter, many of us do, I'm guilty, driving on the highway. There's a sign that's usually posted somewhere, and it has some numbers on it. And those numbers are just not arbitrary numbers. Those numbers mean you ought to be guided by this on your speedometer and your foot with the gas pedal. Amen? Amen. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, because I already know. And there's some, I already heard the guilty behind it. There's some leg goods up in the house. Says 55, and maybe y'all don't 60, 65. And don't get on the interstate. Some of y'all could be driving for NASCAR. But we understand and we know what we're doing, and we know that if we get caught, that there are consequences. You start looking for the blue lights, and you just hope that when you see one, it's not for you. And it causes you to slow down, and if you didn't know you were doing anything wrong, you wouldn't have to what? Slow down. Amen, somebody. But people sin because they choose to ignore and to suppress what creation is clearly revealing about God. We live in the universe that God has created. And throughout the universe, from the delicate flower to the boiling hot sun in the summertime, God has communicated to us his invisible qualities. There's not a blade of grass, there's no color in this world that is not intended to make us rejoice in our knowledge of God. If you take time to smell the roses, we are running so hard and so fast sometimes that God has displayed all this beauty for us to let us know that he did this. Can you imagine the birds know how to navigate because they have this azimuth in them, they're guided by the magnetism of the earth on how to navigate. And they know how to eat. They know when to fly south in the winter. And they don't have to have instructions. They don't have to be guided by us. God has all these flowers. These bees know exactly what to do. They know where to go to get the pollen. They know how to make the honey. Their instructions have been given by God. They were born knowing what to do. Given there by God. We have all types of grass. We've kind of made some grass. You know, we have hybrid grasses. But you look outside and you can look at the beauty of God in creation. The trees know exactly what to do. They know when to shed the leaves. They know when to have the leaves grow. And the flowers, they know when to come out when the warm weather comes. The blooms. Why? God did it. No human being had to initiate that or instruct that or do anything to it. It's God's creation. And take time to understand it. And how water can create places like the Grand Canyon. Understand God's majestic power. Slow down a little bit. You're running too hard and too fast. If you don't have time to smell the roses, then maybe what you're doing is just too much. It's as if we were waking in a magnificent art gallery, and though we've never met the artist of these 10,000 paintings, given for our enjoyment, we learn what he is like. Jeff Chang says he's walking home from work and walked past the farmer's market that meets on Thursdays. He said it was a gorgeous afternoon. Clear sky, warm sun, cool breeze, music in the air, fresh fruits, vegetables, flowers, children playing, laughter, and conversation. Some of you that may have convertibles, or if you have a sunroof, or if you can just let the windows down, if you don't have any of that, you may want to get your little gangster lean in your car, get your white wall shined up, and just stroll through and pop in your music. We don't have 8 tracks anymore. Don't even have any 8 cassette players. But you have your music now on your phone or on the radio. And you ought to just take time, like we used to do years ago, a Sunday stroll. You're driving slow like Morgan Freeman driving Miss Daisy. Y'all hear me? And you're getting up there and you're just driving down on Sunday. Not really going anywhere, just looking around, but enjoying God's creation. Looking at the flowers. Pop in your music. Whether it's Dr. Dre, whether it's Missy Elliott, whether it's Beyonce or Jay-Z, or if you really want to go back, whether it's the Temptations, whether it's the OJs, whether it's Mary J. Blige, or whether it's Luther Vandross or Teddy Pendergrass. Y'all don't hear me. But you pop your music on, and you got a sweet somebody beside you, and y'all just cruising, maybe even have some kids in the back seat, and you just cruising along, y'all hear me? Taking time to enjoy life. And if you don't have anybody, drive by yourself, because you're never alone. The great Almighty, the great El Shaddai, the one who died because he loved me, he's always with you. You're never, never, never alone. You may not be able to see him, but he's always there. And you're not driving, he's the driver. Because sometimes things happen and you wonder how you're still getting caught in a car accident and you're still here. And they look at the car and they say, I don't know how in the world you're still alive. You can tell them I'm alive because of Jesus. I'm alive because of Jesus. But where did this richness and beauty come from? What kind of artist is this? What kind of power must he possess? How good and generous must he be? How must we owe all that we are to him? And that's just one small painting that you're looking at. But this art gallery extends for mile after mile after mile after mile around this world to the galaxies and beyond. And all of it communicates the greatness of God. And when you take time to consider the greatness of God, sometimes something on the inside will begin to start working. Jeremiah said it's like fire shut up in my bones. And sometimes when it begins to work on the inside, it'll start to work its way on the outside. And sometimes you can feel it in your feet. Sometimes you can feel it in your hands. Sometimes you can feel it in your mouth. And sometimes you just have to tell him, thank you. Thank you, God. When I consider all that you have done, I just have to take time to say thank you. When I look back over my life, and I look at my bad days and my good days, I realize, even though I didn't feel it, but I realize that my good days outweigh my bad days. And I just have to tell you, thank you. And God, when I look at my home and I look at my refrigerator and I look at my closet and I look at the pairs of shoes that I have, I can remember when I only had one pair of church shoes. And so I'm away from the news. We need to keep abreast of what's going on, yes, but take time away. Every time I turn around, I'm getting news updates. I'm about ready to cut my updates off on my phone about something. Most is about the virus, is about President Trump. You know, before it was about all these murders and other things, bad things. but take time to consider the goodness and the greatness of God. And God created all this for us. Look in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Because he gave us dominion over all that he created here on earth. Gave us dominion. It's for your glory. Learn to take time and to pause. And you have a swing in home. Swing. You have a chair outside. Sit. Get your favorite non-alcoholic beverage. Get your tea, get your water, get your lemonade, get your juice. I hear some of the old heads behind me. Amen. Sit with the family. Just talk. Don't talk about problems. Just enjoy each other's presence. Enjoy your time together. Tomorrow is not promised. All we have is today. That's all we have. Enjoy yourselves. I'm serious. Stand to your feet, my sisters and brothers. But God is merciful. Amen. God is merciful. Recognizing that we are in a fallen state due to Adam and Eve. And the world has had infection during this time. You know, there have been many diseases. Almost every 2 years, if you track them, almost every 2 years. My family and I were traveling abroad in Asia in 2004 when we had the SARS epidemic. I can remember us getting off the plane and people having masks, and before they let you into another country, they check your temperature. And I was so afraid. I said, Lord, don't let any one of us have a temperature, because then they're going to be quarantined and we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do. But God was gracious and merciful, and it still is. We've had Ebola. We've had what are the other diseases? Can't even think of the rest of them. We've had so many diseases. H1N1, swine flu, you name it. We've had it. So, but we're still here. We're still here. Let us pray. Great and merciful God, you have been with us through many trials and storms and tribulations. I pray that you continue to keep your hand upon your people. And God, continue to protect us from many diseases, those known and unknown. Forgive us of our transgressions, Lord. Heal us of our wounds. And God, as we surrender unto thee, may we feel your grace and your power. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Let the people of God say, amen.